Hello and welcome to the Mindset Mentor on Sauga 960 AM. I'm Tania Kolar, and I hope you are having an absolutely phenomenal day. And we are going to work out your mindset and help you cultivate a life you love. Today, we are talking about grit, resiliency, and embracing failure. All key components in really achieving your long-term goals. It's so easy for us to get derailed and knocked off our path from, what we truly desire, whatever our definite chief aim is. We let other people's, opinions influence our desires and our goals, and it's the challenges that knock us down, and sometimes we want to stay down. But it's really so important to get back up and keep moving forward. So today we're going to help you do that so that you can achieve everything that you want in life, all of the things that you truly desire. Because I think that's one of the big blockages that we have, is that we believe that, it's great and I want this, but there's always the but. I can't have this because I'm not good enough, because I'm not smart enough, or whatever it is that we believe in our minds. But that's exactly it. It's just a belief. So we really want to help to demystify that and get you back on track to achieving your long-term goals, and whatever those may be, right? We're all different, and that's a beautiful thing, right? So we all have different goals, and so we should. So today, I'd love to welcome my guest. She is the author of The Treasure You Seek, which is really about following your heart and believing in yourself beyond reason. And sometimes people think, oh my goodness, can I believe in myself? Yes, absolutely. And another thing that she also talks about, of course, is embracing failure and knowing that you are enough. And truly, that is one of the biggest problems on the planet, is the belief that we think that we are not siough. Couldn't be further from the truth. So we're going to talk about all of that and more in this hour. And so let's say hello to Sioban Kukolic. It's so good to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Tania. I'm so happy to be here and thrilled to talk with you. This is great.
Yeah, so good, because I think we certainly need, help in the right direction. Keep us on track to what it is that we are striving for and aiming for, and to know that it is possible. Our mindset is so key in achieving everything, anything and everything in life, I think is equated to mindset. So my goal is really to help everyone cultivate a life they love by developing and strengthening their mindset. And so it's really important to know where to start. And I think, grit, resiliency, and embracing failure are so key, things that you certainly speak about and talk about and train people on. So I want to start with grit, and, because it's so key and so important. But, what is the true definition of grit for those who don't really kind of understand, what it is? I know there's certain characteristics. So let's start with the definition and delve right into the conversation.
Right. So grit, the way I look at it is that it's that kind of part of you inside that makes you get up the 8th time when you fall 7 times. Like it's that. And what I like about it is that it kind of levels the playing field, because we all have it. It's like a muscle, right? And it's a matter of, do you use that muscle or not? I loved Angela Duckworth's book entitled Grit, and she did a lot of research. And she found that when she looked at the top people in the spelling bee competition in the US, that the self-discipline score always outweighed the IQ score. So it wasn't about kind of what you come in when you think of a fixed mindset and say, well, I'm good at math, I'm bad at science, I'm good at whatever it is. When you think that talent is everything and IQ or these things are everything, you might lose your way. Whereas she found in her studies that, if you work hard and practice and, as I've mentioned before, I mean, if it's true that we come into this world with a fixed kind of level of a skill, then Michael Jordan should have always been the best basketball player of all time, yet he got cut from the high school basketball team. So how is that possible? And the fact, with Michael Jordan, that when they would lose a game, he would still spend another few hours maybe throwing free throws. And then other people see this and say, oh, well, why aren't I throwing free throws? And it's that practice and the constant trying to, better yourself. That's the grit, right? Where you say, and this is why even in my own journey with publishing a book, I made a goal of 100 rejection letters at the start, because Dr. Seuss got 43 for his first book. And I thought, okay, Dr. Seuss got a few things published, I'll go for 100. And the fact that I had that in place with the 100 rejection letters, that gave me the grit, let's say, to every time I got a rejection letter, it was kind of a yellow brick on my yellow brick road to Oz. And so I said, okay, I'll tick that off, go keep moving. So I think we all can practice grit in our daily life. And, look at someone like Terry Fox. I mean, when he started, nobody was watching. He was on his own with his friend. They've got a van sleeping at the side of the road, and he had that grit and said, I am going to keep going no matter what. And then people started noticing, right? But he kind of had that grit to never give up, and he's been gone longer than he's been here now. And we're still running in his name.
Yeah,
right?
Honoring him. Absolutely. And, it is really important because, having that grit doesn't mean that you're not going to have challenges. There's some super successful people who have gone through severe challenges to achieve the level of success and where they are at today. And I think those are great role models and examples for us to, stay true to course and to maintain that stamina, to keep on moving, to keep on going forward, because this is life and we are going to be met with those challenges, right? But we have to make sure that they just don't keep us down. So what kind of advice, Sioban, can you give us to say, all right, so yeah, I've been knocked down and, how do I get back up? How do you keep on moving? How do you become that Michael Jordan?
Right, exactly. Well, I think you have to look at it and say, there's a piece of advice I learned in the book, The Four Agreements. What other people think of you is none of your business. And I wish I'd known that in grade 9, although maybe I wouldn't have listened to it then. But you really have to kind of say, am I living my life based on what other people think about what I'm doing? Or am I living my life based on what I want to do with my life? So like, I'm exchanging a day in my life today for what I'm doing. And is it worthwhile for me? So you really have to think about, your wants, your goals, and it's not always going to be accepted by everybody. It's not always going to be what other people think is the right decision. And this could be anything from what courses you're choosing post-secondary, do you want to do a lateral move in your job? It's not necessarily about, okay, I'm going to quit what I'm doing and start a whole new passion. Maybe it's something at work where you join another committee or you see if there's a lateral move or something. Think about what will make you want to jump out of bed in the morning, and then kind of put a plan in place on how can I make that happen. And you're going to meet obstacles. You're going to meet people that tell you, this, you're not going to be successful at this. But that's another angle too. I always tell people, think about the last 5 Snapchat messages you received, let's say for the younger crowd, or text messages or emails. Are those people filling up your cup, or are they telling you you're worthless? Are they telling you you're never going to make it? And so when you surround yourself with people who believe in you, you start to believe in yourself. And you also want to surround yourself with people that kind of raise the bar for you, that make you want to try harder and rise again. And I think with grit, along with never giving up, you do want to be around people that will be there to kind of say to you, keep going. Like everybody has those few people that you can call and say, this happened, and they say, you can do it, keep going.
Yeah, they've got your back. They've got your back, and they support you. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. They've got your back. And I think of my mom. She's a 2-time colon cancer survivor. And, she did the surgery and the chemo and all the different things. And she would get up and dress up and put her jewelry on and never give up. And it doesn't always work out for everybody, but she kind of was doing the yoga and the medicine and the natural things. And she just never gave up. And if she hit a wall or hit a roadblock, she'd move on to the next thing. So I think we can kind of take that. And she looked at that in a way as a blessing too, the cancer diagnosis that kind of gets you to stop and think about, what do I want out of my life? And was I doing things that, made me feel happy with my life? I think a lot of us have kind of had that come to us during this pandemic as well, where we think, what is normal and what do we want to run back to as far as normal is concerned? Are there some things we should cut out that we were doing before? And how can all those paths come together to bring us where we want to go and add our self-discipline and our grit to that journey?
Yeah, I think it's a wake up opportunity, right? And to reevaluate everything in life. And obviously somebody dealing with life threatening illness, that's a real challenge, to get beyond. And so, my father also suffered from cancer, and he always maintained a very positive mindset to the point where doctors had said that he's unusually optimistic.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because it is amazing for him. It's great, but they gave him zero hope. They were just like, oh, you have too much hope. You shouldn't have any, essentially. And I thought, well, that's not right. You can't, again, be influenced by other people. You have to know what's right for you. And in any situation, and obviously there's so many variables, right? Not everyone's dealing with something as serious as that, but there's so many challenges that you're always dealing with. And it is important to stay focused and just stay true to yourself, what feels right to you, and not have everyone else dictate what you should do and what direction you should take and what job you should pursue, or what career you should give up on, right? Or what dreams you should abandon. Because if you have a dream, you should never abandon that dream, right? So important.
It's so important. And really, we're only on this ride around the world once, right? So you want to be doing, I just finished reading a book too called How Will You Measure Your Life, by Christensen, I think his last name was, and he was talking about how so many times we kind of, let's say you get out of school, if we look at that kind of age bracket, and you kind of maybe take a job that you're not as crazy about, but maybe it's paying more because you feel like I've got to do this, I've got to pay off the debt that I, built up during school. And then what happens is you kind of get into a lifestyle supported by that pay, and then you're kind of trapped. You kind of, how do you get out of where you are? And so, everyone has to make the decisions that are right for them, but can we be on a path where we think, okay, if I, really follow my heart, maybe it's volunteering in the community for that thing that you're really passionate about while you're working, and then all of a sudden that turns into a part-time gig and then a full-time gig, and you kind of fill your way. So you do have to find, not always listen to somebody made up the rules in society. Like, obviously you don't want to be breaking laws, but all the rules of this is what it means to be successful. What is successful? I always say to people, the definition is different for everybody. For some, it's being proud of your kids' accomplishments. For some, it's money. For some, it's followers or likes. But you don't want to climb the top of the ladder and realize you were leaning it against the wrong wall. You want to make sure that you're climbing a ladder or following a path that's really true to your heart. So that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we can, be derailed, from what our passions are, because again, we get stuck in that day to day. But it's so good to, take a look at your life and see, am I doing what I truly love? And if you hate what you're doing, if you're doing that every day, it is an opportunity for you to change that, in any way. Take some small action that can take you there, because that one little bit of action can lead you to something massive. Right? But if you don't take that first step, then it's never going to happen. And you will be stuck in that rat race of just doing the same thing over and over and over again.
It's very true. And the thing is, you have to think about, the VIA character strength survey I did recently, it shows you your top 5 character strengths. And if you end up doing something in your work life, or whether it's a side gig or a volunteer position where you're using one of your top signature strengths. So for me, one of my top strengths is love of learning. So anything I'm doing that involves learning new things, I love. So it happens to be part of different jobs that I'm doing. So if you can fit one of your top 5 character strengths, and the survey is free to do it via character.org, you can figure out, okay, how can I build this strength even into my current position at work? Is there a way to do that? And then there is a way to do it on the side, and you will find yourself getting into that flow and really kind of finding your way. And you do have to think about the decisions in life, and everything doesn't have to be kind of the end of the world decision. You can kind of look and make a list and say, okay, it's not like I'm deciding I'm leaving my job, leaving the town, leaving, it can be small, but you do need to make that list that you mentioned. And action is the X factor. Like, send the email, make the call. As I tell kids that I speak to in high school, if you're interested in something and somebody in the community that's a CEO that does that job, believe me, if a grade 10 student sent an email to the CEO and said, I would love to talk to you for 5 minutes about this, so many of them would reply because they'd be so impressed that you took that initiative. So, and it's the same for adults. If you see somebody and you say, wow, I'd love to know about their life. Like, I'm thinking about law school. I know someone who's a lawyer. Let me reach out to them and say, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And then it can change your path. But to me, I'm always about asking the questions. If you think that you have to always know the answers, that's what makes you scared to kind of put your hand up. And I don't want to look like I don't understand or that I don't know. But that comes with the fixed mindset. Like, because a fixed mindset person thinks that I can't let anyone see that I'm, maybe bad at something or that I don't understand. Whereas a growth mindset person says, look, I'm going to ask all the questions and figure it out and go from here to there and then connect the dots. So ask all the questions, see where the answers lead you, and definitely, you'll find your way.
Yeah, it really does boil down to having grit, right? That passion and the perseverance of what it is that you want, right? And to continue just to move forward and go after it, right? Despite all of the challenges that you're going to be facing, right? And, those little things can be so monumental at the end of it all and can lead you in the right direction. And I always say that, people are afraid to make a decision sometimes, right? And they get stuck in like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? Just make a decision. It doesn't have to be right. Just make a decision.
It's
because,
so true. Make a decision and take that action. Like I read a story, I was reading The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. He talked about this, there was a small fruit farmer that needed this piece of land. And I think it was in Central America. And another massive conglomerate also wanted that land. So the two, it's a one-person show and a huge conglomerate both need this piece of land to build their business. And what happened was there was a mix-up. Two different people said they had the deed to that land. So what happened? The conglomerate hired all the lawyers. They said, we're getting all the paperwork. We're going to figure out who is the person that owns this land and we're going to buy it. The single, fruit business owner went down and he paid both men for their deed. So what does that mean? He just paid double the money, but he took the action. He got on with it. He needed that land to grow his business. So this is what we have to look at in life. Like, do we kind of sit back and make lists and lists and lists? Now, in this case, the conglomerate had the money and the deep pockets to hire all these lawyers. But in the end, this is how the David and Goliath story happens, right? Because he was able to just say, okay, wait a second. One of these guys has the original deed. I'm going to go pay for both. Done. Let's move on and plant fruit.
Exactly. Yep.
So this is what we have to think about in our life. Like, what is our piece of land or the fruit plan, or what do we have to do? Are we going to wait until nobody's going to knock on the door? Like they say, opportunity knocks and you're out in the backyard looking for 4-leaf clovers. You have to, like, opportunity is when preparation meets opportunity. That's what luck is. Sorry, what I'm talking about is luck. So if you're just sitting there and say you're very lucky, well, you're very hardworking probably and have a lot of grit and have taken a lot of action, right? So luck kind of comes on the path as you do what you can to make things happen.
Yeah, I think, you don't have to know the end results necessarily of everything, right? So it's like, you don't need to know the how you're going to get there, but you need to know the why, right? Because that's where the passion is tied into, which is really where you've got that, that fire, you're on fire to create what you want. And so, it is so important, again, to surround yourself with a tribe that can be conducive to helping to guide you and to build you. Find a mentor. I think mentors are so key in helping you achieve, because oftentimes you're asking people that have never even thought of doing what you want to do, and you're asking them for advice. But why would you do that? Like, they don't know. And
what if they're telling you no? Like, what if they're telling you there's no way you can do it? It's like, you wouldn't ask somebody who's never been down that path how to walk down that path. Even if it's somebody that, you're in their circles, but you either get the mentor, like you said, of somebody who's been there, and surround yourself with the people, but also know that you can kind of jump in the deep end too and start swimming and figure it out as you go. So don't feel like, I think for me, I don't need all the answers. I just want to go and start trying, right? Because rejection is a form of redirection, in my opinion. So it's like Thomas Edison with the 10,000 failures. I mean, think about how many times if you failed 10 times at work or 20 times at work, you'd be like, oh, wow, I can't get this done. But he just found, 10,000 ways it didn't work. And each failure taught him something, and he had the grit to keep going. So it's just so important to ask the questions and take action, for sure.
Yes, I think we need to ask ourselves empowering questions, loaded questions, right, that can help to guide us and direct us. Absolutely, right? Instead of, because when we ask poor questions, we get poor results. Right. So very important to ask empowering questions. Now, we're going to continue the conversation here on Sauga 960 AM on grit, resilience, and embracing failure. When we come back, more with Sioban Kukolic. Well, hello, and welcome back to the Mindset Mentor on Sauga 960 AM. We are helping to work out your mindset. In this show, we're talking about grit, resilience, and embracing failure. Now, these are truly key components to helping you to stay on track to achieving your long-term goals. Now, it's so easy to get sidetracked, to be taken in different directions, and sometimes that's a good thing, right? Because we learn from all of our experiences, and can be guided to maybe a different path that we didn't know was the best path, and we kind of figure it out as we go. I think that's why it's so important to stay agile, to stay open, and, to really listen to your intuition, I think is so key as well when it comes to creating anything that you want in life. Stay true to yourself. So we're going to continue the conversation with Sioban Kukolic joining me. Such a pleasure to have you. Thank you and welcome. And author of The Treasure You Seek. I'd love to delve into the book as well. And also because your story of having grit, right? Staying true to like, okay, I can handle the rejection. I'm expecting it. You asked yourself, or you put yourself in a position where you already were, thinking, well, what am I going to do when I'm faced with those challenges? What am I going to do when I get the no and that rejection? And I think that's so important, that it's okay to get rejection. We're human. We're going to have rejection, and, we got to deal with it and move forward, right?
Totally. You're never going to get it right the first time. I mean, you have to accept that, and getting that rejection, the failure. So every time I got a rejection for a manuscript, it's not that I should say, okay, so I'm a terrible writer, give up, it's done. Yeah. You just say, on that day, that person wasn't looking for that piece. Mm-hmm. And so you have to take the rejection, work on it. And so in the end, years later, when I decided 2016, January 1st, I just said, I'm going to start a blog. January 1st, got up 3 mornings a week, 40 minutes early, stared at a blank page, and wrote a blog about something that inspired me. So again, I took that action. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the year, it became a manuscript, and I got picked up by Huffington Post, and I blog for Thrive Global now too. And it was that action though. If I had sat there with that first rejection letter and said, oh, well, of course it's, I'm not good enough. Yeah. And we all have these times in our life where we think, we're not good enough and it's not for us, but we have to keep walking through the fire if we really want that goal, if we really want that.
Yeah, I think it's so important to not take things so personally. And I know sometimes that can be difficult, but if you think about it, if we all took everything personally, we wouldn't be doing anything, right? It's like we would be 100%. Stopped in our tracks early on in life. And so it's so important just to keep on going, and to keep the momentum, and to keep the passion alive. And whatever that passion is, everyone, has a different passion in life. And it's so important though, to let that passion come through. And I always say that, what are you good at? The things that you are inherently good at, that's part of your gifts, your passion, your purpose in life. And I think it's so important to really honor who you are and where you are. Obviously, life and our experiences take us to a new level of learning. And, that's why it's also really important to make sure that we learn from our challenges or our failures, so to speak. And really, right. Are they failures? I don't think so, because it's just, a learning opportunity. That's how I look at failure.
Oh, for sure. It's like opening a window opens when a door closes. And, famous failures, which I talk about a lot in my book too, I find are so powerful, especially because we see them at the top of the mountain and we think, oh, well, they had a connection, or they had money, or they had this or that. But so many of them, Barack Obama, like year 2000, couldn't get a ticket into the Democratic Convention. 2004, he's the keynote speaker with such an epic speech. 2008, he's the president. So in an 8-year span, he goes from not being able to get in to being the president. Anderson Cooper, whose great-grandfather, I think, was, the Vanderbilts that had all the railways they built across the states. His mother was Gloria Vanderbilt with the Gene line, and very successful. And he got out of university, wanted to get a job in communications, and couldn't get a call, couldn't get a job making coffee. And so he, none of the networks wanted him. He just got a VHS and went to some war-torn places, like at the time, I think Bosnia was one of them. And he was sending back footage from these scary, war zones, and the networks were playing it. So this is now, we look at the TV at night, Anderson Cooper, he's on CNN, and you think, well, he must have had a connection, of course, look at his family. But he was also told at a very young age that he wouldn't be getting any inheritance, which was kind of very valuable, I think, for him, because if he had maybe known that he would have all this money, maybe it would have changed his path. But he knew he didn't have inheritance. He had a passion for, being in the news, and he made it happen. And there's just so many stories. Oprah Winfrey, J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter. She had no heat in her house, and she's pushing the baby carriage into coffee shops and writing the story in her head, which is Harry Potter, and again, told no kid is ever going to read a book that long, and then becomes one of the most successful authors. So I think we have to really look at those failures really as just giving you a redirection on where you should be going, and you learn from it, and you try to go forward. But we do have to remember that, Oprah too Oprah was told, like, she got fired from from being a news broadcaster, and Disney was fired for having no imagination. I mean, who was his boss, right? So
yeah.
you just have to look at this and say, I mean, how many times was Disney turned down at the bank for a loan? The hundreds and hundreds, right? And so you have to kind of say, what am I too scared to try because I think it's not going to work? But I have to realize I'm going to get 100 plus. You get 100 no's for every yes. So are you willing to get 100 no's? And if you're willing to do that, really anything can be possible.
Yeah, and you may not be willing to do that in this moment, but you can learn to develop the right mindset to get you beyond where you are, because we can really put a cap on our learning, a cap on our abilities, a cap on our skills, because we just don't believe it's possible. But again, if you have that inherent, belief that you can move beyond it, you certainly can, and we all are capable of achieving great things. And I think the problem lies in, our upbringing or early childhood. Maybe we've adopted this belief that, well, successful people have to be born, that way. We can't learn it. We can't develop grit. We can't develop resilience. We can't move forward because, that's just not for us. It's for other people, right?
Right. And I find, like, I'm an avid reader, and I think, when you think of a book, like, you can get an education. I mean, I've got piles of books about grit and even things like Dale Carnegie's book about, making friends and all these books that have been around, and you think they're classic, timeless books, but there's so much still to learn from them. So if we take a minute, this 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, all these books, we get a little bit from each one and kind of piece it into the puzzle of our life, because we're different from the next person beside us. And also, each of us, you and I and everybody listening, we have lived a life that nobody else has lived. So the experiences that we have are solely our own. And then the books that we read and the people that we meet. This is why with Steve Jobs as an example, like, he had dropped out of school and somebody said, okay, you can hang around the campus and take a course. So he went into this calligraphy course. And as he's in this course, he goes, oh, so why don't we have like fonts and computers? So just think about that. Like, it's not that it's this brain surgery kind of idea, but he was able to connect the dot of computers and calligraphy and come up with fonts because he connected those dots because of life experience. So just think about the way you're living your life, and creativity is not necessarily about creating something new. It's just about seeing it in a new way. And we all have that ability. So I tell my kids all the time, like, the front page of the report card is my important page, the one about teamwork and initiative and collaboration. And those are life skills. And then as well, when you look at the marks, what are you getting the better marks in? Because that's probably where your passion lies. Like, you have to try hard and be respectful and work hard to get all your marks where you'd like them to be, but you're probably not going to end up working in a subject that you're struggling to get out of a C in or something, like, because that might not be where your talent lies, right? So look at what you love and then kind of add to that the grit and the hard work and the asking questions. Like I said, like, questions are the way. There's you'll never know all the answers, but asking questions, and good questions, is how you kind of find yourself at the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important to be conscientious in what you do, right? To have that grit. And, you may not necessarily love a particular thing, but it is still important to put your heart into it, right?
And work hard.
Yeah, to work hard. Put your best into it, because again, you never know what lesson you're going to learn from that experience that can help guide you down the road into another direction. But, I think it's so important that when you truly know what it is that you want, it's amazing how the right people come into your life at the right time to help you.
It's so true. Like, one of the stories I write about in my book, my brother's a high school drama teacher, and he had a student that came into parent-teacher interview with his dad, grade 10, 15-year-old boy, and the boy was in his drama class, and he wanted to take it again the next year, and the father didn't think it was worthwhile, because why would you bother with drama? And so the father said, convince me. So my brother said, what do you do for a living? And he said, I sell cars. And he said, okay, it's important for you to be able to make an argument, to work with conflict resolution, to be confident in your presentations. And the father agreed. So at the end of the interview, he agreed, I'll let him take it next year. So the boy ended up taking it throughout the rest of high school. In grade 12, they entered a drama festival where they won. He was also valedictorian for his class. He goes off to university, as was the plan. And in fourth year university, he emails my brother and says, I'm learning this year in fourth year university what you taught us in grade 10 drama about presentations. So he finishes his degree, takes a job, and 1 year in decides to quit and go back to teachers college because he really wanted to change lives and he was so inspired about the teaching process. And I told this story one night at my adult Irish dance class a number of years back, and one of the moms said, that sounds like my son's favorite teacher. And it was. He now teaches accounting at a school,
wow.
local school. But so the whole idea of someone believing in you, being inspired by the process, the dad being willing to hear, it convinced me. Why should I let him take it? And then sometimes we judge, like, you need to have these courses. These are the important things to learn in life. Well, whereas you can also learn a lot from something that you might not deem to be the top subject, or someone in your life might not deem that. But you have to kind of think, what can I get as a life skill out of what I'm learning? So I just think there's so many stories like that where you have the right people around you and you're willing to take a risk. Like that boy might have said, well, I've got my degree now, I've got my job, so I've done that, I've got to stay here. But he decided to leave it all, and it was a good job to go back and become a teacher, and he loves it. So I think you have to think in your life too, it's not about, oh no, I made the choice and now I'm going to have to backstep. Just think to yourself, what do I really want out of my life and how can I make that happen? And kind of ask the questions, surround yourself with people who can help you find the answers.
Yeah, and also know that, you can change your mind and, be agile and sort of, change and switch, because we're always learning, and maybe what we wanted when we were younger has morphed into something different. And I think it's just important to kind of stay true to that and just acknowledge that, because as you say, we could make a decision and feel like, oh, we're stuck. We cannot change that
right.
path if we're miserable. I think if you're miserable, you need to change something. Something's not working for you, right? So you need to move beyond that and find what will work for you.
And if you're miserable too, I mean, it's all tied into your health, your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health. Like if you're going through your day and you just can't stand what you're doing, what is that doing to your body? Like think about how, the hormones that are rushing through you, if you're stressed or upset or not happy. So we really have to think about, self-care as well during this time, especially with the pandemic. Like I meditate now for 10 minutes a day with an app that I found doing a course, and I read and I go for walks, and I spend time talking to people that can, pump me up if you just need a bit of soul fuel. So you have to do those things in your life too, and not be so down on yourself, because like we said, if failure is just redirection, then there are no mistakes per se. Like everything leads you to the next room. So whether it's that you think, should I have taken that degree? Should I do this? Or should I, go to college or university or trades, or what is it that I want to do? What do I love? And, you just have to kind of think everything is a lesson to be learned and be open to learning it.
Yeah, and it takes sometimes quite a while to figure out why, everything has happened the way that it's happened. It leads you in a certain direction, right? So,
right.
Really interesting to look at where you are and where you were, right? But I think it's so important to know exactly where you want to be, right? To have a direction. And that direction, again, could change many times, but it's so important to kind of be guided, have that internal guidance, and not looking for the external or waiting for other people to show us and tell us where we need to be, because we always have the answers. We talked about how important it is to ask the right questions and the empowering questions. We have all the answers inside if we can, be still, get into that mindfulness and really hear our true essence and, listen to our intuition.
It's very true. And one of the books I always talk about is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, where, and again, with my book too, The Treasure You Seek, like everything is kind of potentially in your own backyard, and you have to go on the journey, but we have all we need. We really have all we need. We can ask the questions, we can reach out to people, and the only thing stopping us often is ourselves. So we just have to kind of say, let's just open the book on a new page tomorrow and write down what I want to actualize in my life and take steps to do it. Like 3 simple things. Like, these are the things I want. This is the action I have to take. What small thing can I do today in the way that I wrote like a 1-page blog 3 days a week that turned into a book after a year? When you think writing a book, as you know too, Tania, it seems gargantuan, right? But if you look at it a page at a time, a section at a time, this is how everything moves forward. It has to be a small bite at a time, little pieces.
Yeah, it's amazing how in that action, that small action, how all of a sudden things start to flow, and then now it becomes less and less, challenging. And it's like, hey, this is kind of easy now. Once you get past that initial, like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how in the world I'm going to accomplish this. It seems daunting, impossible, but it's about making the impossible possible, because it is possible for you.
It is possible. And you almost, when you think about it, how there's a filter in our brain, like with your name. So if you're at a cocktail party and you hear someone say Tania or Sioban, right away, you could be at the other side of the room, you hear it, right? Yeah. Well, that's because we've talked and put our name out there our whole lives. Like our name is something that we really are familiar with. Mm-hmm. So if you decide that your goal is to write a book and you start talking about it and saying it and writing it down, then when you're at that cocktail party, all of a sudden you might hear someone say, oh yes, isn't she an author? Or, oh yes, is that a publisher? Or is that a local this? And you're hearing the way you hear your name, the goals that you're looking for in your life. And you have to set that filter up in your brain by being conscious about it and writing down goals and taking action.
Yeah, because whatever we look for, we're going to find. Right? You're
going to find it. You're going to find it.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more here on the Mindset Mentor. Stay tuned after this break. Hello and welcome back to the Mindset Mentor. We're going to continue the conversation on grit, resilience, and embracing failure. Sioban joining me. She is the author of The Treasure You Seek and also a speaker. I'm loving the conversation because I think it's so important for people to know that the challenges, the hard moments in life, it's okay. Let's look at them as opportunities. What can we learn? What beautiful jewels are there that we can really start to take and move forward with, instead of feeling like, now, I'm not good enough. What have I done? I made a mistake. I can't decide. It doesn't matter. We have to start to really be good to ourselves. And I think, we talked a lot about grit, and I also want to get into more of the resilience, right? So that we can stay true to what it is that we desire, and not let the others influence us, right, in a negative way. And because that happens so often, and it's so soul crushing when, you witness that. But when you're that person, you don't even realize it. And it's like your dreams are stripped from you, and you just now you make a decision at some point that, you know what, I'm not good enough, or I can't do this. And to me, that's so destructive. I really want to help people kind of, get out of that, to break free from those limitations and stay true to themselves and find that resiliency within them. So can you give us an example of, some of the stories that you've seen in the cases and the people that you've worked with, and how can we rise above all of that?
Right. Well, I have one of the stories that I mentioned in my talks, and I wrote about them in my book. It's a couple in Mississauga. They're friends of mine, Keegan and Tania, and their firstborn son was born with a genetic disorder called Prader-Willi syndrome. So at the time, 1 in 15,000 births, and one of the main situations for people with Prader-Willi syndrome is never-ending hunger. So 24/7, you're always hungry. And there's some other issues as well, cognitive issues and things like that. But they were told, well, you're never going to raise any money for this. It's not cancer. It's not well known. And they thought, okay, well, we're going to do something. So they got out their wedding list and they decided to book a walk, like a walk for the cause. And that first walk, this was, I think, 15 years ago, they made a goal of 15,000 to raise, and they ended up raising 50,000.
Wow.
So then from there, Keegan is a computer software guy, so he created a template for a website. They also started the Foundation for Prader-Willi Research in Canada. They ended up connecting, and they won a video contest and got invited to the White House by Michelle Obama to get this prize for winning the contest. And so to date, they've raised over $5 million. And one of their last galas, the keynote was Bill Clinton in one of the galas in the States. But this is an example, like, of course, when they first got that diagnosis, like, if they could have seen ahead and thought 15 years down the road, we'll be raising 5 million, we'll be invited to the White House, we'll have all this, movement towards some medication for this and some research. They didn't know that, and so this is, to me, the definition of resilience, is that they didn't know what was on the other side of the door, but they just thought, we're going to open the door, we're going to walk through the door, we're going to do what we can. And the people that told them you're never going to be able to do anything, they just ignored and they made something happen. So I think that that's one level in life. And for other people, it could be a job or a health crisis they're going through, or a divorce, or something with their kids. And you have to look at it and say, I am not going to have all the answers today, but I have to make a plan, take action, and start moving forward. And kind of, basically, the path will change as you walk and you keep moving. So that's, to me, resiliency is just not giving up when it just seems like overbearing and you just can't take another step, because just that one, and actually their logo or their theme line is one small step. So it really is, stepping forward and moving forward in anything that kind of challenges you in life. And as they say, I think it was in Glennon Doyle's recent book, Untamed, she was talking about like, there is only glory through your story, and you have to kind of walk through the fire. And when you think of pain and suffering, like, pain is something that hurts, but then suffering is kind of what we put on it ourselves. We kind of, mentally say, this is really bad. This is not happening to my neighbor. And that suffering can be, 10, 20, 30 times worse than the pain sometimes. So sometimes if we just say, look, I'm not going to define and listen to other people telling me this is the worst situation ever. I'm going to, accept it, embrace it, take action, and do what I can. And I think that, to me, is resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to tell yourself that you will get through this, you can handle this, you can handle this situation. And certainly there's a lot of people who have experienced, really challenging situations. And
Right.
it is important to just keep moving forward, put one foot in front of the other. And maybe that means that it's not today, take a break. And then the next day, you're going to put one foot in front of the other, and you're going to keep on going, because you absolutely have the capacity within you to do it. And sometimes we doubt ourselves and you think, well, I just can't, it's too tough. You absolutely can. And there's always a lesson in your greatest challenges. And I think the greater the challenge, the bigger the lesson, the greater the lesson, and the more you have to offer other people. So I love your story about that couple who, really took the diagnosis of their child. They were proactive. They were able to raise millions of dollars, and now certainly benefiting, their son, but how many other people around the world, right? And bringing education and awareness, what is this disease that is so obscure that people don't even know about, that it's not funded? Why isn't it funded? Why don't people know about it? And so it's about bringing that awareness and shining that light on something. And that something, for you could be anything in your life, but it is important to bring that awareness and to really, again, not let other people derail you from your goals and your desires. And I think that's a kind of a tough challenge sometimes, right? If that's our, upbringing, if that's an environment that we grew up in, or we weren't supported, or we weren't encouraged, doesn't matter. It's okay. If you didn't have the support that you needed, because you can give yourself the support that you need.
Right. And I think, like, just back to the point that you're saying about, say the funds that Keegan and Tania raised, there's that, but then there's the inspiration they gave to other people. Like, you don't know who's watching you. And the fact that he creates this website template. So now there's a walk in Paris and London, England, and all these other places because of that template, because of this couple that inspired others. And I do think, we all have past, like, many people look back and they might say, I didn't have this, or this didn't go right for me, but we do have to try to, forgive whatever happened before today and start fresh tomorrow, and realize that we do have the power to make things happen. And maybe we didn't have those benefits, whatever it was that you think was missing from what brought you to today, but you can move forward from today. And they also gave you some gifts, those lessons. So whatever it was that you feel you didn't have, you also might have got some gifts and learning from that, So, and I say this all the time to my kids. I mean, the things that make you kind of, challenging sometimes also make you amazing. So we're both sides of the coin. So we have to remember that all the things that make us great, though, there's also things that make us challenging in the same vein. And you can't judge yourself on your challenges, like the things that, are harder about you. You have to own it all and say, okay, I'm going to move forward and use my pros and cons to get me to where I want to go, type thing.
100%. And, and that's different for everybody,
Right.
whatever that looks like. Right. But again, we're all faced with those challenges and the adversity. It's going to happen. And so we want to prepare ourselves for that and know that you can get through and beyond any point, just by staying true and focused and, having that, mindset of growth, right? So that growth mindset that you can grow beyond this and beyond what you think you're capable of achieving, right? We need to see beyond what we are capable of achieving.
It's so true. When I spoke about my brother, who's a high school teacher. He had a student a number of years back. He also coached the football team at the time, my brother. And there was one student who had a really bad knee injury in elementary school and was told you can't do any contact sports. So he goes through high school and finally he gets to grade 12 and he gets the okay from the doctor. You can now play. So my brother gets him out, tries out for the football team, and this kid was so good that all the universities started coming out to, scout him. Mm-hmm. The problem was the story in his head, what was told to him from the days before was, you're not a university kid, you're more for college. So the courses that he took wouldn't allow him to go to university. So my brother told him, well, come back for, quote, grade 13, another year. Let's get you set up with all the proper courses, play football again, and see what happens. So the boy comes back for the extra year, grade 13, gets all the courses he needs. Again, all the scouts come out. He gets accepted to University of Toronto for the football team. First person in his family to ever go to university.
Wow.
So when he gets there, he has a great season, but at the end of that first season, he has a career-ending knee injury again, where he's not going to play football anymore. And his friends and family were saying, well, are you going to quit then? Because, you can't play. He goes, no, I'm staying now that I'm here. And a few years ago, he graduated from law school and he's now a lawyer.
Oh,
so that's a perfect example of, again, someone believed in you. Mm-hmm. What was the story in your head? Like up until that point, he had been told A, and then he never really considered B. And once there was somebody there that said, hey, what about this? He ends up going on and he's a successful lawyer today and he loves it. So I think that we have to think about that in our own life. What is the story in our head and who has helped us create it? Again, surround yourself with people who, give you soul fuel and help that story. But we all have a story in our head, and we do sometimes have to look at it and say, well, why do we think that's true? Why do we think that this is the only thing we can do and that we can't do that? And we have to really consider that as we move forward and kind of take away any self-imposed boundaries that are stopping us from getting to another place.
Yeah, I love it. It's so important to have, a truly indomitable spirit,
right.
In that case. And just go, keep going. You will find, the answers. And,
right.
and it's that fear of the unknown, right? That is such a challenge. And we think, oh no, what's going to happen now? This career is over. This job has ended. Now what do I do? And many people link their identities to their careers or to whatever it is that they do, so to speak. And so when that's now taken away for whatever reason, it's like, now what? Where am I? Who am I? And so the fear kicks in, and that can be immobilizing. And that's why I think it's so important, again, to take action. It doesn't have to be massive action, small, tiny action. If you keep taking little incremental actions, those little micro moments can really become beautiful lessons. And it's part of your journey, really.
It's true. And that idea of uncertainty, I think what happened during the pandemic is a lot of us kind of got frozen for a bit with the quote uncertainty of like, wow, like the schools are closing and businesses are closing and we're in our home. It seems like another world, but we really never had 100% certainty before either. You never could say, I'm going to be in this job for another 25 years. I'm not going to get sick, or I'm not going to do this. Or we never really, but we kind of had a kind of a smoke and mirrors certainty. Yeah. Like we thought that it was certain. So this is really, I think, allowed us to say, wow, so all the things that we could never imagine happened. We're still here standing. Of course, there's challenges and we have to move forward, but anything, we can work through it. I mean, this isn't the first pandemic. It's just the first pandemic that we have gone through because it was, hundreds of years before. But
we always think it wouldn't happen to us. And then we're stuck in now it's happened. Now what?
And now what? And then, really there's things like, I think it moved the workforce ahead years and years as far as flexible working. So many people working from home, who would have thought of that? And also, family time, you see all these families riding their bikes around together. So there are the silver linings in any situation. You can look at it totally negatively or totally positively in life. And I think sometimes we get caught up in, we look at something as like, if something that we define as bad happens, we think it's the end of the world. But if we look at it again and say, oh, well, wait a second, what came out of this? And sometimes, hindsight is 20/20. It takes a while to see the lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, there are some people who, have really had dire, realities
situations,
from this. But then, also there's lessons in that for humanity, for the greater good of humanity. And so I think sometimes our lessons are so much bigger than we are. And, it's important to look at it that way as a collective, and really start to take the good and find it, because there's whatever you look for is always there. I always say that, right? So it's why not focus on something that can help us become a better person, become a better human, become a better anything, in life, and just to evolve as we're meant to evolve, right? We're not meant to have a life full of suffering. Yes, we're going to have challenges in life, but it's not about the suffering. It's about the learning from those challenges and what we can gain and what we can, evolve together. As.
And ask for help too. Like, I think some people feel like I can't ask for help, but know that you can ask. If people are there around you, there's always going to be somebody there that, like you said, has your back. And don't be afraid to say, I just don't know where to go from here. And, you can
scared.
call.
Yep.
Right. I'm scared. There's lots of crisis lines and places that you can phone if you really are stuck and you really need to talk to somebody. But we should all remember that we're not alone. And in a lot of ways, this has showed us that we're all in this together, and we need to kind of look to our neighbors and look who needs some help and help them in this time, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it all ties into, again, just, having that grit, right? The perseverance to continue to move forward. And that could be to inspire others, to be the best person that you can be, to help inspire others, and just, bring out the best in people instead of dimming others' lights. I think we need to work on, bringing out the best in each other as a collective. And unfortunately, we are out of time. So I want to say thank
that flew
you.
by.
I know, it went by so quickly. And I want to thank you for being here, Sioban, and sharing your knowledge and helping us to really maintain that grit and that resiliency to just move beyond, where we are, where we think we're stuck, being, and also to embrace those failures.
Right, for sure. I mean, it was great to be on here. I'm out there on my website, SiobanKukolic.com, and I blog every week on that site. And I hope everybody just kind of remembers that you are enough. You have everything you need. Remember, there's people watching you too, and you're inspiring others. So take that chance, take that step, and other people will follow behind you. So go for it.
Yes, you never know what your words will mean to somebody. It could be one sentence that's going to change the trajectory of somebody's life. So I think
100%. So just live your truth, be authentic, and everybody should do the same.
Yes, and if you'd like to pick up Sioban's book, The Treasure You Seek, it's available on Amazon and Indigo.
That's right, Amazon and Indigo. Yep. It is there, and and I'd be thrilled if anyone has any comments or feedback. They can let me know on Twitter or places like that, and what your favorite story was. They're all short little blogs, so it's kind of like a sip of coffee to get you through your day.
All right, well, there's your mindset workout for today, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Mindset Mentor on Sauga 960 AM, and make sure that you tune in next Saturday at 11 AM so you can strengthen and condition your mindset. Remember that your mindset is like a muscle, so you gotta keep on working it out to get the results that you want, and those results are within your reach, and they are possible, and they are attainable for you. So stay tuned, and we'll be back after this.